Y'all already know what it is. Jay Williams, Let's Live Life, and we're back. Eventful weekend, man. Good weekend. Glad to relax. Saturday night, I did the 7 years free live. Saturday made 7 years, July 10th, that I've now been free. There's been ups, there's been downs, but I'm blessed to be here and I'm blessed to be free. For y'all that caught the live, thank you. For everybody that was in there, for y'all that caught it the next day, thank you. I then pulled it down. So, other updates on things before we get into today's stories. I spoke on a guy named Fire for my subscribers, viewers. Might as well call y'all my lifers, because that's what y'all do. Y'all live life with me. Y'all live y'all's life. Let's live life to all my lifers. The guy Fire spoke about, let me clear my voice, that's just raspy. The guy Fire spoke about one of my videos. I was in the hole with Fire, and Fire he's a Rasta, he's a dread. Virginia came in and implemented this law back in the 90s that everybody had to cut their hair and keep their beards shaved. Fire was one of many people that, when this started, said, I'm not shaving, I'm not cutting my dreads. You know, it's against my religion. I'm a Rasta, I'm not getting rid of my dreads. Me and him had a good conversation yesterday. We spoke probably close to an hour. And we went over a whole lot. I'm gonna have Fire on here in the future. Before we get any further, I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all, a little backdrop on Fire, his IG, so y'all can reach out and touch him. Not touch, don't do that. That's against the law now, but y'all get what I'm saying. Y'all can reach out, connect the man, show him some love. Without further ado, let me introduce y'all to Fire.
Big ship sailing upon the ocean. We don't need no commotion. Florida life, kiss me. Bless. I'm in the days in for days out, no way in, no way out. Check the length of my locks, homie, yo, check the J's out. Jeans kinda big, I choose not to take the gay route. While at work, Snapchat, see what the babe out. Just came from NYC and all they do is play south. So I'ma bring that north back, I'ma bring that talk back. Murder, bringing that chalk back. Put 4 stacks on all that against me. Put up the house, the rent's free. The industry 1, 2 dope tracks, I sent 3. Slim OG, vent free, vent fee, entree level to eat free, knee deep in the LPAR, say he's deep, yes I am. No robbery, just Best Buy scams, let's buy grams, step by grams. Dirty mother, woo, police came and I left my mans. The new wave, y'all can rest in sand. I'm the best that ever did it, y'all the best at dance, Something small, freestyle, written at the same time. One.
So yeah, that's Fire. I told y'all, I was in upper 5. Fire was in the cell next to me. I stayed a year in the hole that go round. And I remember talking to Fire a little bit here and there, and I come to find out that when they did away with the, like I said, you had to cut your hair. They came in, made this new law in the prisons. Everybody shaves their face. Everybody, I don't care if you got dreads or whatnot, you will cut your hair. He didn't cut his hair. He went to solitary confinement and stayed there until he was released in 2016. So I'm excited about that. Y'all make sure y'all check Fire out on Instagram. There's his gram. Get at the dude, good dude. Also, message back and forth for the dude Chad Marks from Blood on the Razor Wire yesterday. I'm gonna link up with him this week. Bring him on, let y'all hear his story. He's got a lot going on. Fought his own case, got himself out of prison. He's helped to get others released. He's got a best-selling book. So y'all make sure y'all check out Chad Marks, Blood on the Razor Wire. And that's what it is. Let's go ahead and get into today's stories. I'll never forget the day the judge said, Mr. Williams, on the charge of malicious wounding, I find you guilty. I sentence you to 20 years with 20 years suspended. Mr. Williams, on the charge of robbery, I find you guilty. I sentence you to 20 years with 10 years suspended. The point he said that, it was kind of like Charlie Brown. You know, when the parents talk of Charlie Brown, you hear womp, 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 womp. I heard them 20s, and I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, man, it just gave me 40 years. Go in the back, I talked to my lawyer. He's talking. Womp, 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 womp. It's not setting in. The reality of what's going on still ain't hit. I tell my lawyer, I said, man, I just got 40 years. He was like, you did. But 30 of them are suspended. You only have to do 10. Yes. It's a bad day and a good day when you get 10 years to pull in prison and you're actually happy. Compared to that 40, whew, give me the 10, I'll take it. I can do it, no problem, right? The purpose of me doing that and opening up like that is to tell you this. When that judge hands down that verdict, very, very, very seldom, on a very rare occasion, are you going to get out any earlier than the date he gave you. Very, very seldom are you not going to pull the sentence the judge imposed. I did mine. Almost everybody I know did theirs or still doing theirs. But there are some guys that have gotten their convictions overturned, got appeals, did not believe in the sentence they were given, weren't guilty, and they fought until the bitter end. Today we're going to get into getting that time, trying to give that time back. Guys I've met that fought and fought and fought all the way up until the end. My advice to you is live your best life and don't end up in that position. I heard somebody this morning on YouTube make a comment. Dude, it said, we weren't all given the same options. I didn't have the same options you had. And the guy told him, he said, you're wrong. You had the same options I had. You just didn't make the same choices in life I made. It's a very powerful statement. You had the same options. You just didn't make the same choices. You didn't make the same decisions I did. And that's why we went this way. And your life went there and mine went here. So without further ado, let's get into locked up, fighting for your life, trying to come home after being sentenced. Y'all know I've seen it. You know I've lived it. So let's relive it. Alright, so in each building, give y'all a little backdrop, we got what's called an inmate advisor, right? Excuse the noise. It says it's 111 degrees in this truck. Had to turn the AC on. In our buildings, we got what's called an inmate advisor. That is pretty much an inmate that is your prison attorney. If you get in trouble while you're locked up and break one of the prison laws, whether it be being in a cell you're not supposed to be in, passing off commissary, fighting, getting caught with something you're not supposed to have, they're going to hit you with an institutional charge. Someone's got to represent you on that charge. So we have what's called inmate advisors. To be an inmate advisor, usually you have to know a good amount about the legal process. Most of these guys have been locked up a long time. And a lot of these guys, aside from advising inmates of their rights on these little bullshit charges you catch in prison, they also help guys with their cases. There are cases that are in court, the case that put them in prison. Today I'm going to introduce you to a guy, we called him New York, but there were so many New Yorks in our building at the time that we just started calling him Yonk. And we called him Yonk because he was from Yonkers, New York. When I meet Yonk, it's because I had caught what's called a 229. That is the code, that is the number for being in an unauthorized area. The guard I told y'all about, Officer G, Officer Grizzlowski, or whatever the hell his weird name was, had wrote me this dumbass being in an unauthorized area charge, right? So now I got to go upstairs to the lieutenant's office. On such and such date, Officer G wrote you up for being in an unauthorized area. Inmate advisor, which is like my little prison lawyer, sitting there, and he tells me, hey, this is a bullshit charge. I can probably get it thrown out. And that's what happened. He ends up being my advisor again. Every building has one of these guys. And on the second go round, he says, look, you can take the loss of commissary, you can take the, no visit restrictions or loss of phone privilege for 30 days, or you can risk it and get sent to confinement. That's the backdrop on how I even meet Yonk to begin with. Well, Yonk doesn't spend all day, every day, pleading people's cases. A lot of people just give me the fine and I'll roll out, right? He also has the job doing laundry in my pod. There's an area that there's doors on both sides of the tiers. You got two top tiers that run down that face each other, and the door opens, and at the end, when it opens, you go into like a laundry area with the washer and dryer. He worked back there washing people's clothes when he wasn't defending people. You know how long it takes to wash a load of laundry. In the midst of him washing a load of laundry, he can go, fight somebody's case for him real quick against the guards and come back before it's time to throw it in the dryer. I set up a contract with him to do my laundry. I'm back there talking with him one day, just shooting his shit. The guard had closed those two doors and wouldn't let me out the laundry area. So now I'm locked back here with Yonk. Ain't got nothing to do but either just stand there and wait for the guard to stop being a bitch, open the door and let me back into my pod, or I can chop it up with dude. He's represented me a couple times, so we get to talking. I noticed he was sitting there and he had a big folder and some manila envelopes spread out where he would fold the laundry on the table. And he's writing stuff down, he's highlighting things, and I'm thinking he's working on somebody else's paperwork. We get to chopping it up, and I said, not being nosy, what you working on, you know what I mean? He said, I'm working on my case. All right, I said, so you've been down a while. Yeah, I've been down 16 years on a 25-year sentence. I said, you still working on your case? He was like, yeah. He's like, this is crazy. Tells me right then and there in this conversation, I could have went home. About 3 years ago, I could have went home. The courts, ruled that they'd done wrong, and they were going to let me go home on a technicality, but I didn't accept the deal they sent in. I said, you ain't go home? No. Why? Because I want that money. They wrongfully imprisoned me, and now they just want to let me go home. Once I sign this, I can't sue them. I get no back pay for all the years I've lost in my life inside prison in a place I shouldn't be. I'm not accepting their plea of just go home and we'll sweep it underneath the rugs. Wow. They came at this man and told him you could go home, and he refused it. I said, so what are you doing now? He was like, I'm still fighting my case. He was like, and if I gotta serve every single day of this 25-year sentence until I get up out of here, I will. And when I get home, I'm going to keep pushing it at the courts until I win my lawsuit for the time I've been wrongfully accused, for the defamation of character, for the wrongful imprisonment, for the loss of wages, for the turmoil this has put my family through. They're going to pay. You don't just say go home and I just go home and everything. Hey, sorry you did all these years. Just go home. Like I told you, I'm looking at dude like, you're tripping, homeboy. If they came to me today and said, hey, will you take some money and, do your whole bid or just go home now, I would have took the whole go home. That's where my mind was at the time, right? He didn't take it. Yonk would also, like I said, help people with their street cases. And there was a dude in our pod that, I don't remember this dude's name, I just remember watching him leave. And he was one of, I would say, probably, out of all the time I've done, maybe 5 people I've seen get their case overturned. Yonk is telling me, and dude is telling everybody, I'm going to be going home, man. He found a loophole in my case. One of the officers that testified against me that was the main key, person that testified has come back now that they got all this corruption going on with this cop. All these different cases he lied on. Him planting drugs, him doing this. Now they're overturning convictions that were based off of this officer's testimony. He gets this dude back in court, Yonk does. This dude comes back to the prison, and when he walks in the pod, he's clapping his hands. It's like, I'm going home, man. Straight up, I'm going home. I beat my case, got back in court. I beat it on the fact of it's a crooked officer that got me sent here. It's an officer that lied. Most of what he said in court was a lie. So they're throwing my conviction out. I said, so if they're throwing your conviction out, what's that mean? You're going to get a new trial? He says, that means it's over with. That's it. I get to go home. I watched this man leave, and it was bittersweet. It's always a good thing to watch somebody go home. It's a bad day when you watch a piece of shit go home. Dude was an alright guy, right? But I remember watching Yonk and the way Yonk moved after that. You could see he had a sense of pride that he had helped get this man released. But at the same time, he still couldn't get himself free. Kind of like, remember in the movie Life, when they helped the dude Can't Get Right. He was a baseball player. Movie starring Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy. They got Can't Get Right a contract playing baseball to go home. They did everything they could to get this man recognized, and they watched him leave, and they both had to stay behind. Kind of the same situation with Yonk. Yonk watched this dude that he fought for, pushed all this legal stuff for, all these different appeals and this and that to all these different courts, high up courts. Old boy went home and Yonk stayed behind. I transferred up out of Greensville, and that was the last I seen of Yonk. I talked to a friend not long ago, maybe about 2 years ago, that told me Yonk went home. I said, damn, Yonk beat his case and went home? He said, nah, Yonk finished up his 25-year sentence and went home. Goes to show you that people do beat their cases sometimes. There are some very intelligent brothers, man, some very intelligent men in general locked up that in another life could have possibly been an attorney, could have possibly been somebody way different than who they turned out, to be. Like I said in the beginning, they just did different than everybody else, and that's what put them in that situation most of the times. I've looked into it. I don't remember Yonk's name, first or last. I just knew his nickname. So I can't find anything on Yonk, but it's crazy to think that the man did the 25-year sentence over just going home. And if he did that, then I guess in his heart of hearts, he felt like he was going to win whatever it was that he was fighting for. You might not win right then and there, but you win in the long run. And that's just like the guy Fire I was telling y'all about. Fire refused to conform. He refused to cut his dreads. And he sat in the hole all those years. And as y'all seen in the picture, he left the prison with his dreads. Because of Fire and the couple other guys, I'm not sure how many guys it was that held out until the very end. I'll let him tell that. But because of them, they just brought it back where VA inmates can now grow their hair back out. You can actually be a man and grow a beard. And that was because them brothers stood up for something they believed in. They could have left the hole at any point had they cut their hair. Yonk could have left prison had he had just signed that new deal they set up for him that would put them in a position to say, hey, there's no wrongdoing on our parts. But sometimes you got to stand for something, or you'll fall for anything. Not everybody's going to fall for the okie doke. There are some strong men out there that are going to ride with what they believe in, that are going to stand up for what they believe in, that are going to stand up against the injustices, regardless of how long it takes them. Even if it means they got to spend their last days in there, or all the way up until their release date in there, fighting for what they believe in. This does happen. Let's get into the second story. I met a guy once that was back doing 11 years on some of the dumbest shit I had ever heard. This is a man that had done 18 years and was back finishing up another 11 on a 30-year sentence. Now, the thing with parole, let me break this down for you. Here's how parole works if you fall under the parole guidelines and you got locked up before they abolished parole in Virginia. If you get released on parole, when you go home, the remainder amount of time over your head, most of these men have to do that amount of time on probation or parole. If you've got 11, 12 years over your head, you're released early on a 30-year sentence. You've done 18 and some change. That leaves you with 11 years and a couple months left to do that you got out early on. If something should happen along the lines of your parole, probation, whichever you get stuck with, which usually it's with old law, it's parole. You got to go meet with the parole board once a month. They come out to your house. For whatever amount of time you didn't finish up in prison, you're going to spend that dealing with these people. This man was back because he met a woman and he moved from the house where he was renting a room in with this woman. Said it took him a couple months to get on his feet. He moved about 45 minutes, an hour away from the county he was living in to another city. The parole officer went by his old house looking for him and couldn't find him. Said he got in touch with the parole officer once he got settled into the new house. She told him, come on in and talk to me. He went in to talk to his parole officer. There was 2 cops waiting there. They arrested him for violation of parole. Sent him back to prison to do the remainder of his sentence. He hadn't committed a new crime. He hadn't hurt anybody. He just failed to report to her his address change. He didn't tell her every move he was making, that he had met a woman that had a better place for him, a nicer house in a nicer neighborhood. Failed to report to her for a couple months. Didn't do anything wrong in this period, but because he failed to report and moved without telling her, they violated him. Sending him back to prison. 11 more years to pull in prison after being paroled because you didn't tell somebody that you moved. You didn't commit a new crime, but because you didn't call and check in with them, he got violated, sent back to prison. We had an older black guy that lived above me in a cell. There's another one of those deals where some of the names just, if I didn't kick it with you or deal with you on a day-to-day basis, I'm not gonna remember your name. Thousands and thousands, prison's so crazy. You literally have to start forgetting people to meet new people. Did you hear what I said? You have to forget people to meet new people. Because it just kind of, it's like a sensory overload. Your brain just gets too full with names, and you have to actually know people on a personal level for them to stick around in your memory. I remember the guy that slept above me, and the reason I remember him is because the story sticks out in my head with today's topic. This man was doing 40-some plus years on an old murder charge. And I know murder, old, new, regardless, murder is wrong. You know, you don't take nobody else's life. But he had been going up for parole. I think it was like every 5 years he would go up for parole. He gets at his 30-some year mark and he makes parole. The parole board grants him parole. We find you deemed fit to return back to society. You've made it. You made parole. You're an old man now, but you know what? You can go home. You did good. Congratulations, sir. You're free to go. No. 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 I just come over here because that's what's required by me. Is to come to these parole meetings. I'm down now to where I have 7 years. This is what the whole story that spread through the prison that he told everybody. I was actually cool with Tech, the dude that slept in the cell with him. Same story Tech told me that he told him. Told him, no, I don't want parole. You don't want parole? You do understand that by turning down parole, you're probably not going to get accepted for parole again. and that you're going to have to do the remainder of your sentence in prison. That's fine with me. I've been locked up this long. I'll do the remainder of my sentence in prison. What won't happen is I'm not going home on parole. I'm not going home on probation. I'm not going home with y'all's claws dug into me, any shape or form, in any way. And that's what he would do. That man turned down that parole, did, I believe it was another 7-8 years he had left to do before he maxed out his sentence and was released. And he did the next 7-8 years voluntarily, because he knew how the trick up game is and how easy it is for men in that position to go home and get snagged up for something stupid, something petty like the guy I just told you about, and be returned back to prison. Everybody thought the dude was crazy. I thought the man was crazy. The story with the guy that made the parole and then got turned around and sent back for 11 years. Once I heard his story, it made more sense on the other guy's story that turned down the parole. See, people think that when you go to prison or jail and you get locked up, that when you finish up your sentence and you come home, it's over with. It's not. You have to come home and it's almost like you're walking on eggshells. You're walking on ice. Every little thing you do can potentially be what keeps you free or be what sends you back in. You don't have to necessarily commit a new crime. You could be at a party one night, be drinking. This was then. Be drinking and decide to hit a joint. You done smoked up with somebody, right? Wake up next day like, no, please tell me I didn't do that. Go in front of that parole officer, that probation officer. Hey, we need urine from you today. We need you to take a urinalysis. You pissed dirty for that weed. I hate to do this. I've got to violate you and send you back. Now with me, I told y'all in the beginning, they gave me 40 years with 10 to serve. That 30 years is not gone. That 30 years is over my head for a period of 30 years. Which means for 30 years, I must keep good behavior. For a period of 30 years, I must be a law-abiding citizen and not get in any type of serious trouble. And if I do, I'm going to get sentenced for whatever crime I commit. And then they're going to take a chunk of that 30, whether it be 5, 8, 10, 15. They're going to say, hey, Mr. Williams, you brought back a new case, which gave you 6 years on the new case. But on that 30 we suspended that's over your head, here's 10 of that. Now you got 16. I was released from probation and anything to do with Department of Corrections after 9 months of being released, which is kind of unheard of. I know guys that have been out now for years that are still on parole, that are still on probation. Upon my release, one of the first things I did was I made sure all my court fines were paid. I made sure the people had all their money, that anything I owed the courts was paid. Because at the end of the day, that's the main thing they're concerned about, is the money. They want their money. I paid over $6,000 in court fines, to the point my probation officer was like, what are you doing out there? I said, what do you mean? How are you coming up with this amount of money when I know your job is only paying you $10.50 an hour and you're getting paid every 2 weeks? The numbers aren't adding up. I told her I tattoo on the side. She said, well, you can't do that. I don't advise that. I said, why not? Do you have a license to tattoo? Do you work in a shop? No, I don't. So you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. How are you complaining? I'm paying my taxes. These places you're tattooing, and I'm sure they're not the best places. No, they're not. So you're putting yourself at risk by being in these projects and these bad places to tattoo. No, I'm putting myself at risk to feed my family and to pay these fines. Don't misconstrue what I'm really doing and make it seem like I'm down in the projects chilling. Because please believe, as soon as I'm done tattooing, I clean everything up, take some green soap, clean off the tattoo, apply some ointment, clean my tattoo machines, clean up all my stuff, repackage it, seal it up, and I head home and I pay the bills. 9 months I was released from probation. I was proud of that. I came in at around my 6-month mark, and I said, I've changed jobs. She said, well, thank you for notifying me. Who do you work for now? I said, I work for myself. You work for yourself? Did you open a tattoo shop? No, ma'am. Then what do you do? I now own and operate JHW Construction. That's my construction company. You run a construction company? No, I own, operate, and run a construction company. Well, that's amazing, Mr. Williams. I'm glad to hear that. I came in the following month and she told me, I don't need to keep having you come in sitting in this chair. That chair you're sitting in is designed for somebody else. It's designed for the guy that's going to get out of prison and that's going to continue to commit crimes, that's going to violate probation or parole, and that's going to make my job hard. Guys like you make my job easy. I'm going to talk to the lead guy at the probation department and request that you be let off probation. I was set to be on probation indefinitely undetermined. That was my, some guys get a year probation upon release. Some have to do infinite amount of probation upon release. And then with mine, it was undetermined, meaning I could be on it for a period of 30 years if I didn't act right, or my behavior could get me off probation. I had never completed probation in my entire life. I remember being young and getting locked up so many times for probation violations that when it was all said and done, I sat and I looked at it and I was like, damn, I've done almost a year in 30-day, increments and installments. Violate probation, 30 days. Violation of probation, 90 days. Violation of probation. These were on the smaller charges prior to going to prison. 60 days. In Philly, violation of probation. I ain't been out Philly in years. Got caught up in Philly, got my name ran, and got sent back for a probation violation that was 5 years old. It was a good feeling the day I was released from probation. It was a good feeling the day I knew I finally had their claws out of my back. I had my life back. It was time for me to go on to become the man I should have always been. It was time to start J. Williams Let's Live Life and take y'all on this journey. I hope y'all got a lot out of today's video. I hope for guys that are on probation or parole, you listen to everything I just said and take pointers from what I said, and don't just see this as me talking. Don't just listen to me. Hear me. Hear what I'm saying. Don't just listen. To all the guys that have ever stood up for what they believe in, salute. To the fires in the world, to the Chad Marks, the blood on the razor wire, to these caliber of individuals who never stop fighting, I salute y'all. My advice, and I've told y'all this in the beginning, is to keep yourself out of trouble. Make the right decisions in life. You can't say we're not given the same options, because we are. We just make different choices. It's debatable. Well, that guy's daddy was in a position to send him to college. That's why he went to college. He also went to college because he got good grades. He went to college because he did right. Because guess what? College just ain't accepting guys that made F's their entire life. He had to put in the work. Best believe, if you put in the work now, your honor roll, you're somebody that the teachers are like, yo, this guy is smart. He's real smart. You smart. You know what I mean? Then when it's time to apply to a college, just based off your academics and what you have to offer the world, that scholarship may come your way. Stop with the bullshit excuses, what you can and can't do. You're given the same opportunities as everybody else in life. The question is, what choice are you going to make? What decision will you make? Are you going to go left with the knuckleheads and drive towards the penitentiary? Or are you going to go right and be successful in life? The choice is yours. But anyway, These prisons, jails, detention centers, these facilities, they're all just crazier worlds inside of this already crazy world we live in. And as always, y'all know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to keep y'all entertained. Are you not entertained? And like always, this is Jay Williams, Let's Live Life. It's all my real ones. And there are some real ones watching, because y'all still watching me. Y'all know how we do. Salute.